Riley Carter had always believed his life would stay simple. He woke up before sunrise every day, long before the town opened its eyes. The quiet mornings on the ranch were peaceful. The sky slowly turned from deep blue to soft orange. The horses waited in their stalls, recognizing his footsteps. The land stretched far, and the only sounds came from nature, wind brushing through tall grass, birds chirping, and the thumping of horse hooves. Riley liked this life. He did not grow up with much money, but he grew up with honesty, hard work, and kindness. His father had taught him everything he knew: how to care for a horse, how to fix fences, and how to stay calm even when life became heavy. After his father passed, Riley stayed on the ranch to keep everything running. He didn't complain. He didn't wish for a different life. He felt comfortable with the rhythm of his days, but even a quiet life could bring unexpected moments. The town fair only happened once a year. It wasn't big or loud like fairs in big cities. It was simple. Homemade food stalls, handmade crafts, children running around with colorful balloons, local musicians playing cheerful songs, and neighbors greeting one another as if they were all one big family. Riley didn't usually attend. He preferred staying on the ranch unless he needed supplies. But this year he promised his friend Ben that he would stop by. "You work too much," Ben had told him. "Come out for a few hours. You need to see more than horses and fences." Riley laughed and agreed. He didn't mind taking a short break. When he arrived at the fair, he felt a warm wave of familiarity. People waved at him as he passed. Mrs. Dalton, who sold homemade pies, stopped him to offer a free sample. Children ran past him, giggling as they chased one another through the grass. The air smelled like roasted corn, sweet cotton candy, and fresh lemonade. Riley walked slowly, enjoying the simple joy around him. He didn't expect anything unusual to happen. But life has a way of surprising people when they least expect it. As he turned a corner, he noticed a small booth decorated with simple cloth banners and handmade wooden frames. It wasn't fancy, and that made it stand out even more. Behind the table, arranging her crafts with careful hands, stood a young woman he had never seen before. Her name, written neatly on a small wooden sign, was Elena. She was focused, her dark hair tied back in a loose ponytail, with a thoughtful expression on her face. She seemed calm and serious, yet something about her presence felt warm. Her crafts were beautiful: hand-carved keychains, hand-painted stones, small decorative items made from recycled materials. Every piece looked like it had been made with love and patience. Riley stopped without meaning to. Something about her made him forget his reasons for coming to that part of the fair. For a moment, he simply watched the way she worked. She was not trying to impress anyone. She looked content in her own small space, arranging things carefully, making sure everything looked perfect. Then she noticed him standing there. Her eyes lifted, and Riley felt suddenly awkward, as if he had been caught staring. But she didn't look upset. She just smiled politely, the kind of smile that was gentle but guarded. "Hi," she said softly. "Are you looking for something?" Riley shook his head. "Just looking around. Your work is beautiful." Her smile grew just a little. "Thank you. I make them at home. It helps me support my family." Her tone was calm, but there was a weight behind her words, something unspoken but real. Riley nodded, not wanting to pry. "Well, you're really talented." She gave a small laugh, almost surprised. Not many people stop to say that. Most just walk past. "Then they don't know what they're missing," he replied honestly. It wasn't a line. Riley didn't know how to flirt. He simply said what he felt. And somehow, that made Elena look at him with more interest. He picked up a hand-painted stone with a small sunflower on it. "Did you paint this?" "Yes," she said. "I like sunflowers. They always find a way to turn toward the light." He smiled. That's a nice way to think." Her eyes softened as if she appreciated his understanding. They spoke for a few minutes, nothing too personal. She asked if he lived nearby. He told her about the ranch. She asked if the work was hard. He said it was, but he liked it. Their conversation felt natural, simple, comfortable. But Elena kept a gentle distance in her voice, as if she had drawn an invisible line. Riley sensed it and respected it. He didn't push. He didn't try to impress her. He just enjoyed those few minutes of quiet conversation. When other customers approached her booth, Riley stepped aside and let them take his place. He didn't want to leave, yet he didn't want to interrupt her work. As he walked away, he heard her say, "Thank you for stopping by," and something about the sincerity in her voice stayed with him. He wandered through the fair for another hour, talking to neighbors, buying a few snacks, watching children's games, but his thoughts kept drifting back to the girl at the craft booth. Who was she? What was her story? Why did she seem both strong and fragile at the same time? Riley wasn't someone who believed in sudden feelings. He wasn't the type to fall for someone instantly. His life was slow, practical, and careful, but something about Elena felt different, unexpected, like discovering a quiet melody in a noisy place. He found himself walking past her booth again on his way out. She was arranging things once more, focused and graceful. She looked up briefly and noticed him passing by. This time she gave a small but real smile, the kind that reached her eyes. He nodded back, pretending he wasn't curious, pretending he wasn't wondering when he might see her again. As he reached the exit of the fair, he realized something unusual had happened that day. Something simple yet powerful. A peaceful life could still surprise him. And Elena, with her gentle smile and quiet strength, had become a small spark in his quiet world, something he didn't understand yet, but something he could not ignore. That night, as he returned to the ranch and fed the horses under the soft glow of the barn lights, he found his mind wandering back to the fair, back to her booth, back to the sound of her calm voice. He didn't know her story. He didn't know her struggles. He didn't even know if he would see her again. But he knew one thing clearly. She had left a mark on him without even trying. And for the first time in a long while, Riley felt a new feeling settle in. Curiosity mixed with hope. A feeling that maybe, just maybe, his quiet life was about to change. After the fair ended that evening, Riley found it hard to push Elena out of his thoughts. Her calm voice, her gentle smile, the strength in her eyes, everything about her stayed with him longer than he expected. For someone who usually lived with predictable routines, this unexpected feeling was new, strange, but not unwelcome. The next morning, he tried to continue his work normally. He fed the horses, fixed a broken water pipe, and loaded supplies into the truck. But every now and then, his mind drifted back to the fair. He wondered if Elena would still be there the next day. He wasn't sure why it mattered so much, but he felt a pull he couldn't explain. By afternoon, he decided he needed to go into town anyway for tools, and since the fair ran for the whole week, it wouldn't hurt to stop by again. That was what he told himself, even though the truth was simple. He hoped to see her. When he arrived, the fairgrounds were quieter. It was a weekday, so fewer families wandered around. Some vendors sat on small stools waiting for customers. Children played in small groups while their parents chatted nearby. Riley walked slowly through the rows of booths, pretending he was just browsing. But his eyes kept searching ahead until he finally spotted Elena's booth. She was there, arranging items again, her hair falling slightly over her face as she leaned forward. He felt a small wave of relief. He hadn't realized how much he'd hoped she would be there until he saw her. When he approached, she looked up and recognized him instantly. This time her smile was a little warmer, a little more familiar. "You're back?" she said, her tone light. Riley nodded, trying to sound casual. Needed some things from town. Thought I'd stop by." She raised an eyebrow with a playful expression. "Really? Or did you come to check on my sunflowers again?" Her teasing caught him off guard, and he laughed. Maybe both. Her smile softened. She seemed a little more relaxed today, less guarded than before. He looked at her crafts again, noticing the details he hadn't seen the first time. Some pieces were shaped like tiny houses, others like simple hearts. It was clear she put her whole heart into each one. "These must take a long time to make," he said. "They do," she replied, "but I enjoy it. It helps me keep my mind calm. Life gets heavy sometimes, and making things gives me a little peace." Riley nodded. "I understand that." She looked up as if surprised by his response. "You do?" "Working on the ranch helps me too," he said. "When I'm fixing something or taking care of the horses, I feel more at ease." Their eyes met for a moment, an unspoken understanding passing between them. But just as quickly, Elena looked away and focused on arranging her crafts again. Riley could tell she didn't want to open up too much. People who have carried heavy burdens often learn to close their hearts tightly, and he sensed she was one of them. A few minutes later, a group of customers approached, and Riley stepped aside again. He watched from a distance as Elena greeted them politely. She spoke kindly, but without unnecessary friendliness. She wasn't trying to charm anyone. She simply did her work with quiet dignity. When the customers left, Riley came back to the table. "Do you work here alone?" he asked. "Yes," she replied softly. "My siblings help sometimes, but today they're at school." "You have younger siblings?" "Two," she said. "A brother who is 12 and a sister who is 10. They're the reason I work so hard. I want them to have a better life and finish school without worrying about anything." There was a firmness in her voice, the tone of someone who had grown up faster than she should have. Riley listened quietly. He didn't interrupt. Her honesty was something he didn't take lightly. After a moment, Elena glanced at him and added, "It's not easy, but I'm trying." "I can see that," Riley said gently. "And you're doing a great job." She didn't respond right away, but he noticed her expression soften, as if his words touched a place she kept hidden. Then she changed the subject quickly, almost as if she was afraid of being vulnerable. "So, what do you do on your ranch?" Riley talked about his horses, the daily work, and the challenges. Elena listened with interest, occasionally asking questions. It felt natural, like their personalities matched in a quiet yet steady way. But even while they talked, Riley sensed a wall around her, a wall built from past struggles, responsibilities, and broken trust. She was friendly, but she did not let him get too close. Her smiles were real, but measured. Over the next few days, Riley visited the fair again. Each time, he ended up at her booth. Sometimes he helped her move boxes or fix a loose display board. Sometimes they just talked. Sometimes they shared comfortable silence. And each day, Elena grew a little more open with him. One afternoon, he found her looking tired, as if she hadn't slept well. "Everything okay?" he asked. She hesitated. "Just trying to manage too many things at once. My mother works late, and I have to help with homework, chores, and then prepare things for the fair. Some days feel long." Riley felt a quiet ache for her. She carried so much weight on her young shoulders. But he did not offer pity. She didn't need pity. She needed respect. "You're strong," he said simply. "Most people would give up, but you keep going." His words made her blink, surprised again. No one had said that to her before, not in a way that felt real. She gave a small smile. "Thank you." Their bond was growing, slowly and honestly, like a seed finding sunlight little by little. But even as they grew closer, Elena kept a distance inside her heart. She didn't want anyone thinking she needed saving. She didn't want anyone trying to take control of her life. She valued her independence fiercely. One day, when Riley offered to carry a heavy box for her, she stopped him gently. "I can do it," she said with a soft but firm voice. "I don't want to depend on anyone." Riley didn't argue. He respected her boundaries. "I know," he said calmly. "I'm not trying to take over. I just thought I'd help." She paused, then nodded, appreciating his understanding. "Thank you. I'm just careful." "You should be," he replied. "It means you care about yourself." Elena looked at him again, her eyes thoughtful, as if she was beginning to realize something about him, maybe that he wasn't like the people who had disappointed her before. But even with this small progress, she still kept the important parts of her life hidden. She still held her fears close, and her past even closer. And Riley, with his patient nature and gentle heart, didn't push her. He waited, listened, and stood beside her without forcing anything. But soon life would test them both, and bring a moment that would change everything between them. A moment that would show Elena just how sincere Riley's heart truly was, and a moment that would make Riley understand the depth of her silent battles. Because time doesn't stop for anyone, not even for two people slowly learning to trust one another. Their story was only beginning. The fair continued for the rest of the week, and by now it had become a habit for Riley to stop by Elena's booth every day. He didn't even pretend he was coming for anything else. Whenever he finished his ranch work early, he cleaned up, changed his shirt, and drove into town. He didn't rush, but he also didn't waste time. His feet always seemed to carry him toward her without hesitation. Elena noticed this, even though she didn't say anything. She had begun expecting him, and she too felt a small warmth whenever she saw him walking toward her booth. He had a calm presence, the kind that made things feel easier even when she was stressed or overwhelmed. Still, she kept herself guarded. She couldn't allow anyone too close, not when she carried responsibilities that most people her age never had to face. But Riley's consistency, his respect, and his gentle patience were something she hadn't seen in a long time. One evening, as the sun began setting behind the fairgrounds, she seemed quieter than usual. Her hands kept fidgeting with a piece of ribbon, and her smile didn't reach her eyes. Riley noticed instantly. "You look worried," he said softly. She hesitated, then shook her head. "It's nothing, just a tiring day." He didn't believe her, but he also knew she wouldn't talk unless she wanted to, so he didn't pressure her. He helped her close up the booth, lift boxes, and carry a crate to her small bicycle cart. She thanked him politely, but her voice was distant. That night, Elena went home feeling heavier than she had felt in months. When she entered the small, worn-down house she shared with her mother and younger siblings, she found her mother sitting at the dining table with a stack of papers. The look on her mother's face said everything: worry, sadness, fear. "What happened?" Elena asked immediately. Her mother sighed, sliding the papers over. "It's the old fines, the ones your father had before he passed. They never fully cleared. The letters say we are behind again." Elena's breath caught. They had been dealing with those problems for months, and she thought everything had finally been settled. "How much is it?" she asked quietly. The number written on the page made her stomach twist. It was much more than she could earn in a short time. Even if she worked double shifts, sold every craft she had, and took extra jobs, it wouldn't be enough by the deadline printed in bold letters. "They could take the house," her mother whispered, her voice trembling. "I don't know what to do." Elena felt her chest tighten. This house wasn't big or fancy, but it was their home, the place her father had worked so hard to keep. She couldn't let them lose it. She didn't sleep that night. She lay awake thinking of solutions, thinking of ways to earn money, thinking of how to keep her brother and sister safe. Every idea led to a dead end. Every plan fell apart. By morning, She felt exhausted, but she still forced herself to go to the fair. She needed to work. She needed to earn whatever she could, even if it felt hopeless. When she reached her booth, she set everything up with mechanical motions. Her eyes looked tired, and her mind felt tangled with worry. Riley arrived shortly after. He immediately noticed the difference in her. She didn't greet him with her usual warm smile. Instead, she kept her head down, focusing on arranging small items that didn't need rearranging. "Are you okay?" he asked quietly. Elena gave a weak smile. "I'm fine, just busy." Riley did not believe that for a second, but once again he didn't push. He simply stayed near her booth, helping her where he could, offering company without forcing conversation. Later that afternoon, when Elena stepped away for a moment to help another vendor, Riley noticed a folded letter on the corner of her table. It must have slipped out of her bag. He didn't mean to pry, but the bold red letters on it caught his attention. Final notice. His heart tightened. He didn't read the whole letter. He would never invade her privacy like that, but the few visible lines were enough to understand that Elena's family was in serious trouble. He placed the letter back exactly where it was and continued standing there quietly. But his mind was racing. He felt a deep urge to help her, not because he wanted anything in return, but because he could not stand to see her hurting. The thought of her worrying alone made his chest ache. That evening, when she packed up to leave, her hands shook slightly. Riley stepped closer. "Elena, please tell me what's wrong." She finally looked at him, and her eyes were filled with emotions she had been holding back all day, but she shook her head firmly. "I can't. It's not your problem." "It is if it's hurting you," he replied softly. For a moment, she looked like she might cry, but she quickly turned away, taking a deep breath to control herself. "I'll be fine," she whispered. "I always figure it out." She left before he could say anything else. But Riley didn't go home. He couldn't. He stood there for a long moment, thinking, then made a decision that came straight from his heart. A decision he didn't second-guess. A decision that felt right, even if it was bold. He walked toward the town office. The building was almost closing, but he reached it in time. The clerk sighed when she saw someone enter so late, but when Riley approached the desk, her expression changed to professional politeness. "How can I help you?" she asked. Riley took a deep breath. "I need to take care of a payment. It's for the Diaz family, Elena Diaz." The clerk blinked, surprised. "Are you a relative?" "No," Riley said firmly. "But I want to cover it. All of it." She stared at him as if she wasn't sure she heard correctly. "It's a very large amount." "I know," he said. "Whatever it is, I'll pay it." She hesitated. "Sir, this is not a small fee. It could empty your savings. Are you sure?" Riley nodded without blinking. "Yes, I'm sure." He didn't think about the money. He didn't think about what he was giving up. All he thought about was Elena and the fear he'd seen in her eyes. He wanted to take that fear away. The clerk processed the payment, and Riley handed over everything he had saved for years, money he'd earned through hard work, early mornings, and long days. He even offered his tools and some equipment from the ranch as collateral to complete the final amount. When everything was finally done, the clerk stamped the papers and handed him a receipt. "It's cleared," she said. "Their home is safe." Riley exhaled deeply, feeling a sense of relief wash over him. Not relief for himself, relief for Elena, for her family, for her siblings. He left the office quietly and stood outside under the dim streetlights. The night air felt cool on his skin, but inside his heart, something warm was spreading. He hadn't done it to impress her. He hadn't done it to make her feel indebted. He had done it because it felt right. Because sometimes, when you care about someone, even if they don't realize it yet, You want to lift the burdens they shouldn't have to carry alone. The next morning, word reached Elena through an official letter delivered to her home. When she read it, she froze in shock. The fines were cleared. The house was safe. Everything was fixed. But the letter also mentioned the name of the person who paid, Riley Carter. Her breath caught. Her heart pounded. A mix of confusion, disbelief, and emotion overwhelmed her. Why would he do this? She grabbed her bag and rushed to the fairgrounds. She didn't walk. She almost ran. When she reached her booth and saw Riley standing there as usual, she marched straight to him, her eyes filled with questions and emotions she could barely control. "Why?" she demanded, her voice shaking. "Why would you do that? I told you, I'm not someone who needs to be helped or bought." Riley looked into her eyes calmly, without fear or guilt. "I know you're not for sale," he said gently. "I never thought of you that way. I just wanted to take the weight off your shoulders. You don't owe me anything." Elena stared at him, her defenses shaking, her heart struggling to understand this kind of kindness. She had never met anyone like him. And this moment, this act of pure, honest sacrifice, would change their lives forever. Elena stood in front of Riley, her chest rising and falling with fast breaths. She had rushed all the way from home, her hair messy from the wind, her eyes bright with shock and something deeper, something she wasn't ready to name. "You didn't have to do that," she said, her voice a mix of anger, confusion, and gratitude all mixed together. Riley stayed calm, as he always did. He didn't move closer. He didn't touch her. He simply stood there, grounded like the earth beneath them, letting her speak. "I know I didn't have to," he said gently. "I wanted to." Elena shook her head, trying to understand. "But why? You barely know me." "That doesn't matter," he replied quietly. "I saw you struggling. I saw how hard you were fighting to protect your family. And I knew I could help. That's all." His voice was steady, honest, warm. There was no pride in it, no hidden intentions, no expectation. But Elena had lived a life where help usually came with a price. People often offered kindness only to demand something later. She had learned to stand on her own feet because trusting the wrong person hurt too much. So even now, with her heart full of gratitude, fear wrapped around her like a shield. "You think you can just fix everything with money?" she whispered, almost painfully. Riley's eyes softened. "No, I just wanted to make things easier for you. Not buy anything, not change anything, just help." Elena didn't speak. Her eyes slowly filled with tears she didn't want him to see. She turned away quickly, pressing her lips together to stop herself from crying. Riley didn't move. He gave her space, letting her breathe. She took a deep breath, wiped her eyes quickly, and turned back to him. "I don't want to be something you feel responsible for," she said. Riley shook his head gently. "You're not my responsibility, and you're not my burden. You're someone I care about, someone I respect." His words were soft, but they carried a truth she could not ignore. Care, respect, words she was not used to hearing from anyone outside her family. She looked at him, searching his face for any sign of dishonesty. But there was nothing there except quiet sincerity. Still, her voice trembled. "I don't want people thinking I'm someone who needs saving." "You saved yourself already," Riley replied. "I didn't save you. I just helped clear the road in front of you." That made Elena blink in surprise. No one had ever said something like that to her. The way he viewed her strength, the way he honored it, felt unreal. She sat down on a wooden crate near her booth, her legs suddenly weak. Riley sat a few steps away, not too close, not too far, just at a respectful distance. He placed his hat on his knee and waited for her to speak first. For a long moment, they sat in silence as the fair slowly came to life around them. Vendors greeted one another, children ran past, and musicians tuned their instruments. but the world around them felt distant compared to the storm of emotions inside Elena's heart. She finally took a slow breath. "You don't know what I've been through." "Then tell me," he said softly. "Only if you want to." For the first time since they met, she didn't push him away with her usual guarded tone. She looked down at her hands and began speaking in a quiet voice. "My father worked very hard, but the company he worked for stopped paying him during their financial trouble. He kept believing things would get better, and he didn't show us how worried he was. But the bills grew. Debts stacked up. And then—" She paused, swallowing hard. "He passed away from a heart problem. Suddenly everything fell on me." Riley listened carefully, his expression full of empathy, not pity. "I had to leave school for a while," she continued. "My mother took extra jobs. I started selling crafts to help us survive. There were days we couldn't even pay for electricity. And those fines, they were a shadow following us everywhere." She looked at him, her eyes soft and tired. "So when you paid them, it felt like a mountain suddenly disappeared." "But it also scared me." "Why?" he asked. "Because kindness that big feels dangerous," she said honestly. "It makes me feel like I owe you something, and I don't ever want anyone to feel they own a part of me." Riley nodded slowly. "I understand. And you don't owe me anything. Not even a thank you." She stared at him, stunned by the simplicity of his answer. "What do you want then?" she whispered. He looked into her eyes, not with desire, not with expectation, but with a gentle truth she wasn't prepared for. "Nothing," he said. "Just to know you're okay." Elena felt her breath catch. It was too simple, too genuine. It almost didn't feel real. She leaned back, closing her eyes for a moment. She felt a strange mixture of relief and confusion. Relief that the burden was gone. Confusion about what to do with the gratitude swelling in her heart. People began stopping by her booth, so she stood up to help them, still processing everything. Riley helped quietly, placing items on display, lifting boxes, and speaking kindly to customers. He didn't bring up the payment again. He didn't boast, didn't act differently, didn't ask for her attention. He simply stayed by her side the way he always had, calm, steady, respectful. Throughout the day, Elena kept glancing at him. Each time she looked, he wasn't staring at her. He was working, smiling at children, or tying bags for customers. He wasn't trying to impress her or make her thank him. He was just being Riley. Later, when the crowd thinned, she walked over to him. "I don't know how to say this without sounding emotional," she said, her voice softer than before. "But what you did, it means more to me than I can explain." Riley nodded once. "You don't have to explain." She studied his face again, searching for anything hidden, any sign he expected something from her. She found nothing but honesty. So she took a small step toward him. "I'm not used to trusting people," she said. "But you're making it hard not to." A quiet smile appeared on Riley's lips, warm and grateful. "Take your time. I'm not going anywhere." Those words were simple, but they touched something deep in Elena's heart. Someone staying. Someone not giving up. Someone patient enough to let her trust bloom at its own pace. She found herself smiling for the first time that day, a real smile, the kind that reached her eyes. As the sun began to set, painting the sky in soft shades of pink and gold, Elena packed up her booth. Riley helped as always. When everything was ready, she stood beside her bicycle cart, holding the handlebars. "Thank you," she said quietly, finally allowing herself to say the words. Riley nodded gently. "You're welcome." She hesitated, then added, "I want to know you better. Someday. When I'm ready." His expression softened even more. "I can wait. There's no rush." Elena looked at him for a long moment, memorizing the kindness in his eyes. Then she breathed deeply and said something she had never said to anyone outside her family. "I feel safe when you're around." Her words stunned him for a moment, not because he expected them, but because they came from a place deep inside her heart. He tipped his hat slightly, trying to hide the emotion in his eyes. "And I'll always treat that with respect." Elena felt something warm bloom inside her chest, a gentle, hopeful warmth she hadn't felt in years. She rode home slowly that evening, glancing back once to see Riley walking toward his truck. He lifted a hand in a quiet wave. She smiled and waved back. For the first time in a long time, her heart felt light. And although she didn't fully understand what was growing between them, she knew one thing clearly. Riley Carter had changed her life, not by buying anything, not by demanding anything, but by giving her the one thing she had forgotten how to feel: hope. The days that followed were calm, yet filled with small moments that carried deep meaning. Elena had never imagined that life could feel this steady and hopeful. For so long, she had lived in a constant state of worry, thinking about bills, her siblings' needs, and the weight she carried alone. But now, even though her problems were not gone, she no longer felt like she was standing on a shaking ground. Riley's support, his actions, and his quiet strength had slowly created a safe space around her. After the storm of emotional decisions, she and Riley began to work together on practical steps. They spent many afternoons visiting offices, speaking with officials, and checking old documents. It was not easy and often tested their patience, but every time Elena felt frustrated, Riley calmly reminded her, "We'll find a way, one step at a time." And every time Riley felt overwhelmed by the long process, Elena gently encouraged him, "We'll get through this. Just stay with me." Their teamwork grew naturally, without pressure or expectations. It felt like two people walking side by side, holding the same goal in their hearts. Elena had never worked with someone who treated her as an equal. Riley had never met someone who understood his quiet strength without asking him to change. Together, they found a rhythm that made heavy tasks feel lighter. Weeks passed, and finally, one early afternoon, they received a letter confirming that Elena's family home could be saved without losing everything. With proper proof and legal guidance, they managed to resolve the fines and secure a payment plan that Elena could handle. When she held the letter in her hands, her eyes filled with tears, not of sadness, but of relief. Riley stood nearby, watching her. For a moment, neither of them spoke. Then Elena turned to him and said softly, "Thank you for staying with me through all this." Riley shook his head slowly. "You did this," he replied. "I just stood with you." Elena smiled, a small but sincere smile that carried more emotion than words could ever express. She had been strong alone for many years, but now she finally understood that strength did not always mean carrying everything alone. Sometimes strength also meant allowing someone to stand beside you, not to take over your battles, but to support you in facing them. Over the next days, something changed between them, but not in an uncomfortable way. They did not rush into anything, and they did not need to speak loudly about what they felt. Instead, their connection grew through gentle actions. Riley would check on her family's garden, helping repair a broken gate or fixing a water pipe without being asked. Elena would visit the ranch and bring warm meals for the ranch hands, always including Riley's favorite simple dishes. It became their unspoken habit, acts of kindness that carried the weight of unspoken feelings. One evening, Elena arrived at the ranch just as the sun was setting. The orange light touched the fields, making everything look peaceful. Riley was in the barn, brushing his horse. When he saw her standing in the doorway, he smiled in his quiet, humble way. Your horse looks happy today, Elena said as she stepped inside. He's calm, Riley replied. Maybe he's just enjoying the evening. Elena walked closer. Riley, can we talk? He placed the brush down and turned to her, giving her his full attention. He always listened to her like that, without distraction, without judgment. I've been thinking, she began, about everything that happened, about how I reacted, how afraid I was at first, and how much things have changed now. Riley nodded but stayed silent, letting her take her time. You never tried to buy me, she said gently. I know that now. You weren't trying to take control of my life or take anything away from me. You were only trying to help because that's who you are. Riley lowered his gaze briefly. I just didn't want you to feel alone, he replied. I would never expect anything from you. What I gave, whatever I offered, it was never meant to be a price. It was just care. Elena felt her heart grow warmer. I know, she said, and that's why I'm not afraid anymore. For a moment, the barn fell quiet. The only sound was the soft breathing of the horse beside them. Elena stepped closer. Close enough that Riley could see the sincerity in her eyes. Riley, she said softly, I want you in my life. Not because I owe you anything, not because of what you did, but because you showed me what real kindness looks like, and because I've grown to care about you too. The words were simple, but they were more precious than anything Riley had ever expected. He felt his heart fill with emotion, but he stayed calm, not wanting to make her uncomfortable. I care about you too, he said in his steady voice. More than I can say, but I want you to have freedom, not pressure. Whatever you choose, I'll respect it. Elena nodded, grateful for his gentle nature. I'm choosing this, she said. I'm choosing you. Riley's expression softened. He took a small step closer, but still kept enough space to make sure she felt comfortable. Then we'll take this slow, he said. No rushing, no expectations. That's exactly what I want, she replied. After that conversation, everything between them felt clear. They were not just two people helping each other anymore. They were two people walking into a future they both wanted, at a pace that felt natural and comforting. Their days became filled with simple joys. They took walks in the open fields, shared meals with Elena's family, and worked side by side on both the ranch and her home. Elena's siblings quickly grew fond of Riley, especially after he taught them how to ride a calm old horse named Willow. The children saw him as a kind, strong figure who always knew how to fix something or make them laugh with a silly story from his childhood. Elena's mother often watched Riley with warmth in her eyes, silently appreciating the respectful bond forming between him and her daughter. She saw how gently he spoke to Elena, how he listened without interrupting, and how he never pushed her into anything she wasn't ready for. It reassured her that Elena was finally in the presence of someone who valued her deeply, not for what she could give, but for who she was. Months passed, and their relationship grew stronger. There were no dramatic gestures, no loud declarations. Instead, their story was built through quiet moments, sharing responsibilities, supporting each other, and creating new memories. Their love grew like the slow movement of seasons, steady and natural. One evening, Elena and Riley sat on the fence overlooking the fields. The sky was painted with shades of pink, orange, and gold, and the air was calm. They didn't speak much, because they didn't need to. The silence between them was peaceful, filled with understanding. Elena leaned gently against Riley's shoulder. He didn't move away or react with surprise. He simply allowed it, giving her comfort and warmth. It felt like the most natural thing in the world. After a while, Riley spoke softly. You know, when I first saw you at the fair, I didn't think something like this would ever happen. Elena smiled. Neither did I. I wasn't looking for anyone. I wasn't ready for anything. But you let me in, Riley said quietly. You gave me a reason to, she answered. He nodded slowly, his eyes watching the sun disappear behind the hills. I'm glad you did. Elena took a deep breath, feeling a sense of peace she had never felt before. I'm glad, too, she whispered. As the sky faded into dusk, they remained there. Two people who found each other in an unexpected place through patience, respect, and simple acts of kindness. She was never for sale. She had never belonged to anyone. But she chose Riley freely, and he valued her more than anything he could ever buy. And that choice, made with honesty and trust, became the start of a new chapter, one filled with quiet love, steady support, and a future built on mutual respect, not sacrifice. Their story wasn't loud or dramatic. It was real, gentle, and deeply meaningful, just like the kind of love that grows not from grand gestures, but from the simple act of standing beside someone, day after day.